a very, very stark contrast from JD Vance on the Republican side. One way I saw put it was it's the coach versus the couch. Hello, I'm Colin,
And I'm Charlie.
and welcome to the C&C Talks podcast, episode 22 of season 3. And we've been, I guess, kind of enjoying a nice time off from doing these episodes, but in the interim, we did 19 straight days of Olympic live streams on the C&C Talks YouTube channel. But it's nice to be back now in our traditional format.
Yeah, it is good to be back. Well,
Apparently, you
should we
forgot
get
how
right
to
into
do
it
this because I think this next part's yours.
I am not used to doing these.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, just a reminder, as you do every week, we release episodes every week, and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. It is currently Thursday, August 15th, 2024, at about 9 p.m. Pacific time, as of us recording this.
Glad that you are shaking off some rust there. Some rust
Well,
that
and
we
I don't
also
have
have
to
to
an editor.
shake off. Is politics. We haven't talked about politics on online for over
No,
a
and we
month.
picked probably the worst 3 weeks to not talk about them.
So I think that you can make. So we did do an episode. Charlie, I'm not sure you were there. I think that Zack and I did it. I think that we did an episode. The night I think we recorded it the night that Kamala Harris, or sorry, that Joe Biden dropped out and endorsed Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so because
but
I was at Columbia, so I was not
yeah,
able
I
to
don't
join you
think
guys.
that you have recorded an episode since I think you and I recorded one night that Trump was shot.
No, because I was still in New York.
No, I think
Um,
we recorded one then though. But so we could go
did
back and
we?
look.
Oh
But
no, we did.
we did.
I recorded in the closet of my hotel room.
Yeah. So I I think you can make a legitimate argument. The last, shall we call it, month and a half, probably since the presidential debate, is the most insane month in presidential politics history. Um,
Potentially.
like there's other examples, and of course, this is like tons of recency bias here. That I cannot think of a time as more chaotic. In fact, that episode that Charlie that Zach and I did, I took over for your stat of the week. I call it Colin's stat of the week for a week,
Oh
and
yeah.
this is what I found. Okay, I'm gonna give it to you again right here. Okay, it's because it's politically related. When was the last time that a one of the major political parties did sorry, the incumbent party, there was an incumbent president that was eligible to run for re-election, aka not term limited, so like not Obama in 2016, not Bush in 2008, and that person was not their party's presidential nominee.
All right, let me think about this. Um, hmm. Is it Truman?
No, it's more recent than Truman.
Okay, but Truman did do it. No.
Was Truman was eligible because they hadn't passed the amendment putting term limits in
Well,
yet, unless I'm mistaken.
well, no, because he took over for
For FDR.
Roosevelt, and then he won in 48. I don't.
He
Did
was
he
only
run?
elected once. The current rules, I believe, state that if you take over in the middle of a term but you serve out the completion of that term for more than 2 years, then you can't run for more than that.
Okay, so that does basically count as a
Yeah, but
as
yes, but I'm not sure when the amendment was passed.
okay. So then my assumption would then be Johnson in 68.
Yes, it was Lyndon Johnson in '68. Also a Democrat. Also the convention that year held in Chicago. Also a year with many assassination attempts.
Yep,
Well, I'm gonna say we've only had one, as far as we know.
and
But
the winner of that election turned out to get in some legal trouble a couple of years later.
Yeah, and the winner of that election was Republican. So in other words, not great precedent for the Democrats on that one, but I think, Charlie, if we look at it, Harris taking over at the top of the ticket needed to happen. I
Yes,
mean,
and also, if you look at the Supreme Court precedent recently, Watergate is no longer illegal.
yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like too. I think we discussed that the
I think
last
we did.
episode that we recorded. But I do think, like, we've talked for a while on the podcast about like how Biden has been a transformational president, and I don't think any of that changes, right? There's a difference between being a good president and being a good candidate, and Biden was not a good candidate. And I mean, you could argue, and I think we maybe tried to argue a little bit, and lots of people tried to argue Biden could win this election. He's not actually that bad of a candidate, and the media was treating him unfairly. Right? Look, the media was treating him unfairly, and that didn't go away. But I mean, you at the same time you have to work with that, and I think that if you just look at what has happened in the campaign since Biden stepped off the top of the ticket, I think that we can all now admit that we were very, very wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I think we
Kamala
were.
Harris is a far superior candidate. Who knows if she'll be a superior president or not, but I think you have to admit that as a candidate, it really probably can't get much better for Democrats when you look at the amount of enthusiasm behind that campaign at the moment. If you look at some of those Harris speeches, the way that she's able to turn out voters, I mean, we've mocked Trump for talking about crowd size for a while, but if you look at it, these really are bigger crowds than Trump has had. Even if she's held some of her events in the same buildings that Trump has, Harris has
And
had more people
did,
in
did,
at those events than
did Trump
Trump had.
also didn't he also say that he believed that some of the Harris crowds were generated using AI?
Yes, I mean, look, Trump is losing it because he believed when he was running against Biden that essentially he had the election in the bag. It was being handed to him. And I'm not sure if I would have gone that far, but I think that ultimately he would have won somewhat comfortably with him running against Biden. And he is very upset that he's now running against Harris, not only somebody that he is now trailing in the polls to, right? His poll numbers have plummeted significantly since the Democrats got a new candidate. But also just that he doesn't have a real way of attacking Harris. He doesn't have anything. Um, his attack lines are essentially just the boring old painting her as a radical liberal that wants to destroy the country with no other evidence. And sure, maybe that's gonna work somewhat on his base, but at the same time, it's getting stale. And I think he's just really struggling to find a way to define Harris, and especially I mean, we know that when he's mocked, it gets really under his skin. The Harris campaign has seemingly been trying to mock him at every opportunity with some press releases they've been putting out, with some of what Harris says at her rallies about how she's when she worked as a prosecutor and as the state attorney general, she's she prosecuted like sex offenders, fraudsters, etc. So she's seen Donald Trump's type, right?
Yeah,
And I think that gets under his skin. And then of course the fact that she is able to draw out in rallies, just like you said, I think that yeah, that gets under his skin. He feels humiliated in a lot of ways, and I think he's going completely insane, even more so than we normally see him going. And I think that's just one of many examples of him talking about how she has AI crowds.
yeah, I agree. I will say though, certainly momentum is in Harris's favor for now. Obviously, though, there is time for Trump to turn it around, and I think that especially during 2020 as well, over the course of the election cycle, his attacks on Biden, and then in 2016 against Hillary, his attacks were more effective the later into the campaign they were. So I would
I
not.
mean, yes, but then we see Republicans going on Fox News, whatever. Kevin McCarthy, if he still counts as a Republican figure. Nikki Haley, not that she has any appeal to Trump, but going on and saying, look, you got to stop attacking her on her crowd size. You got to fun of her name. You got to stop calling her Kamabla. You've got to
Well,
stop saying that she's not black. Well, here, right, like you need those black voters. You got to stop, going on a Twitter space with Elon Musk and saying that you should fire all of any worker that goes on strike, which by the way is illegal to do. There's strong worker protections law.
Well, I think the
But
reason
if
they're
you got
saying
to
that is
stop
not
doing that, you're going to
necessarily
lose union votes. Trump doesn't know any better. Like
no.
he
And
can't
I
stop
think
doing
the thing
these
is
things.
that in him doing these attacks against Kamala Harris, I think all he's doing is losing himself votes.
Well, I mean, we often sometimes we'll sometimes see the media saying like Trump is trying to get the black vote behind him. Is he? Because all that I see is him, attacking Harris for her race, including at like a conference of black journalists. Like, come on, like he's not trying to appeal to black voters because he can't. He doesn't know any better. All that he knows is to be racist. Like that's who he is, and he can't stop himself. Just like he can't stop himself from talking about Hannibal Lecter at his rallies. Like, I mean, it's funny when you think about it, but it's like I'm sorry, that's who he is at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else in the news that we should talk about?
Yeah, we should talk about the running mates.
Yeah, good idea. Who should we start with?
Let's start on the Republican side.
All right. So, thoughts on JD Vance then?
Oh boy. I think that if when Trump made this pick, he knew that he was going to be running against Kamala Harris instead of Joe Biden. And look, real quick before I get back to that thought, I think that he really did think he was going to run against Biden because, like, even though by the time the convention rolled around for Republicans, even like by that point, to a lot of us, like, Biden was probably going to have to step down. The concept, I think, to Trump of giving up power is just it's contrary to everything that he believes in. So I don't think that ever crossed his mind. But I think that if he did think that he would be running against Harris and not Biden, he probably would have picked someone other than JD Vance.
And I
JD
think
Vance,
and I
JD
think he
Vance does
should have
not
picked
appeal
someone
to
else other than
anybody.
JD Vance.
What?
Because JD Vance has been an absolute disaster for him.
He doesn't appeal to anybody except the far right base, right? He's not winning over any voters, which remains to be seen. Like whether Tim Walz for the Democrats will be able to. Vice presidents normally don't, but it feels like he's terrible at politics. Like
It does.
his speeches have not been good at all, and like when the primary reason that you're in the news at this point is well twofold. Number one, because Democrats have this really effective attack on calling them weird, calling Vance specifically, but Republicans in general weird. But then also, when you're in the news for this fake rumor about you that spread like dynamite across the internet because it seems plausible that it is true, even though it's not.
Is this the thing about him being a couch?
I don't think you can use those words in the podcast, but yes.
Well, we can bleep out one of them.
Yeah.
Prefer
You
to
should
use the word couch because I think that would be funnier.
yeah. You should rephrase that.
Him having sexual intercourse with a piece of upholstery.
Yeah, it's
Is that better?
yeah, sure. It's
Am I allowed to say that?
yeah, it's certainly weird. Again, no evidence to suggest that he actually did this, but I think that when you look at for the reason that it's so the reason that it spread the way it has is because it seems like something that he would do. It speaks to his character. So I think that I mean, obviously it's relevant whether he actually did it or not, but I don't think that's necessarily the most important thing.
The truth.
Yeah.
But
now
we do support the truth, and we do want to clarify that there is no evidence that he did this. But
it's also really, really funny And also,
it's also very bad for a major political party if it is believable that one of your candidates, I'm not going to say it again because I'm worried that we're going to get taken down if we say it again.
yeah, but here's the thing though, is the fact that it was able to spread like that, and again, essentially no actual Democrats had any role in this spreading. I mean, Tim Walz made a joke about it at a rally, but no actual elected Democratic officials or campaign officials really had any part in spreading. This was just an internet thing, and that was how Vance got painted from the beginning. And that just absolutely ruins the entire campaign for him, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely it does.
And again, Charlie, I'm curious though what you think about this attack, which was really led by Tim, but also it's really taken off on the Democratic side. Maybe the most unified messaging that I've seen on the Democratic side ever about this whole branding Republicans as weird.
Well, so my thought on that is I think it's a very broad term that I think can be interpreted in a lot of ways. And I think for the Democrats, I think that is a very powerful tool to have this very broad attack that is really hard to defend from.
Well, it's very hard to defend from because it's true. I mean, some of the examples I'll give are just one guy doing it, but talking about the fact that the green M&M isn't sexy enough is a weird thing. Being mad at how Dr. Seuss how stated Dr. Seuss removed a couple of his books and creating an entire culture war off of that. That is weird behavior. Constantly thinking about the genitals of children when it comes to trans issues, like constantly thinking about that. That is weird behavior, right? The Republicans are having trouble defending against the weird accusations because, let's face it, they're weird. And I think it also hurts them deep because, and it's pretty common for people that are fascist leaning to try to do this, is essentially their entire ideology predicates off of the idea that they are normal, and to essentially tear that up and paint them as the abnormal ones is completely devastating to their entire movement.
Oh no, it absolutely is. I mean, their platform for the longest time were, we are the party that is fighting against the moral corruption in the country, is basically.
Yeah, we're the party of the family values, even though, look, we know that that's false. Right? That's who they've always been. Though that's who they've always tried to paint themselves as. And
yeah,
to attack them on that, I think is particular. It hits them where it hurts them most. Now, Charlie, let's talk about the other side, the Democratic side of the ticket here for the vice presidential candidate. We saw Kamala Harris consider a lot of different people, from Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear to Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, but it seems that she narrowed it down to two: Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, but ultimately picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. What do you make of that pick?
I think it was, of the two, I think it was a good choice. I think that Walz is a great candidate. I also think that by not picking Shapiro, you avoid any potential issues with the far left, given that Shapiro is Jewish.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the fact that he's Jewish certainly plays a part of it, but also his stance on Israel Palestine, which, by the way, he has spoken out against Netanyahu several times, but he's tried to crack down hard on college campus protests, which, yeah, again, that hurts you with the far left, especially if you're trying to reset. It doesn't seem that Kamala Harris has the same type of bad energy with those far left voters, at least not yet as Joe Biden does. So you're at least finding a way to appeal somewhat there. But then I also think that there's just this difference between Shapiro and Walz, and I wasn't really able to put my finger on it until I did see this one comment. I don't remember who it's from, so I'm sorry I can't quite give credit to it. But essentially, if you compare the two of them speaking, Josh Shapiro, when he speaks, sounds like a very, very, very good politician, very good at speaking as a politician. Whereas when Tim Walz speaks, he doesn't sound like a politician.
That is
And
very true.
and in part, that's because he's not quite as much of a politician. He is, I mean, like he did serve several terms in the House and a term and a half as governor, but he was a veteran. He was a school teacher. He was a football coach. Um, right, like it's hard to find somebody better than that because he really is just like a hardworking American in a lot of ways. And he found a way to be progressive too without necessarily seeming progressive. And I think that really does speak to how he doesn't feel like he's a politician even though he is. And I think that's hugely beneficial. I found interesting. He had never used a teleprompter before in his career before he gave that speech.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that first speech in Philadelphia,
Oh,
that
wow.
first joint rally, and it was a good speech too.
Yeah, very
Like
well done from him.
he could have fooled me. I wouldn't have guessed that he had never used a teleprompter before.
I, wo-
Um,
I wonder why that is.
yeah. But so I think he really does fit the job well. I also think Shapiro had issues where like he was asking for a bit too much power as vice president, and also seemed that he would maybe be doing it more just for his presidential ambitions in the future. So ultimately, I do think that Harris probably picked the right candidate. I think Tim Walz is an excellent, excellent candidate in a lot of ways, and a very, very stark contrast from JD Vance on the Republican side. One way I saw it put it was it's the coach versus the couch.
Yes. So I do real quick want to get your thoughts on the at this point who set up the ignoring 2024, which obviously we don't really know enough about who's going to win yet. But given it doesn't really matter who wins, who do you think is the best positioned of the candidates right now for 2028?
You mean on the Democratic side?
Yes, on the yes for the Democrats.
Well, if Kamala Harris wins this election, then her.
Obviously, she'll yes. But if
And
say she doesn't,
uh, do we have an election in 2028 in that case?
probably, but maybe.
If we do, I don't know that will have seen a clear front runner emerge in that case.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think
Like,
that's one
and
of
that's
the
not
issues.
necessarily a bad thing either, right? Like, Harris is a great candidate now, but again, if she loses, she wouldn't be the candidate in 2028. But like, there's so much talent on the Democratic side, as we saw when Harris was trying to pick a vice presidential candidate, and she was limiting the search primarily just to white men. There's
Yeah,
a lot of talent on the Democratic side, and I also think it's good that we don't necessarily have a constant election. We're not constantly in an election period. I mean, if there's one thing that Harris's run has taught us so far, it's that we don't necessarily need 2 years of run up to the presidential election.
no, not necessarily.
Do it like the UK does, 6 weeks.
Yep. I
Um,
will say it is nice for once to have us mentioned for something positive.
yeah, yeah, it is. It's rare on this podcast, but it is. Um,
Despite my best efforts.
yeah. I will say, what's been really notable, though, I think, about this Harris campaign is it's felt in so many ways like I've seen it dubbed this a lot. It's the campaign of joy, right? It there seems to just be genuine excitement and happiness on the Democratic side, and that just feels like a very stark contrast to all the doom and gloom happening on the Republican side. And so I don't think that we should overlook that either.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should overlook that.
And then yeah, and then if we look at polls finally real quick, yeah, Harris is gaining ground very quickly, but it's also important to remember polls don't vote. Humans do. People vote. And you got to actually go out and vote. Because that's ultimately what's going to decide this election, not whatever the New York Times says.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing to leave off on, isn't it?
Yep, let's go to your stat of the week.
Yes, let's do that. Finally, first time in a while, stat of the week is back, and it's my stat of the week again. Colin, thank you for taking over for a week, but I will be taking duties back. We are in the middle of the NFL preseason, and one of the most impressive records that I know of was the record for the longest amount of preseason games won in a row. It was set by the Ravens. How many games in a row did the Baltimore Ravens win?
Oh, this was like, it was like 27 or something, right?
Close. It's 24. They started it in 2016 and they lost it last year to the Washington.
Just ended.
Yes, they lost it last year to the Commanders.
So unless I'm remembering correctly, it looked like in that game against the Commanders last year that they were like seriously trying to win a preseason game and keep their streak alive.
Yeah, they kept their starters in for a while.
Yeah. So make of that what you will. Apparently when you have a streak like that, preseason games start to actually matter.
Yep. All right. I think that'll do it for Charlie's Stat of the Week. Let's get right into sports. And where better to start than with a recap of our Olympics? We've been talking about it for 15 days. We had 17 or 18 live streams, so we know what we're talking
19.
about. 19. What do you know? All right. Let's talk about the Olympics, what we learned, some of the controversies, and where we go next.
Yeah. I think we start, Charlie, with just the city of Paris. And apart from, the whole swimming in the Seine thing, I don't think that you could have asked that city to put on a better Olympics.
No, right? I agree. This was very beautiful.
Opening ceremony, phenomenal. Closing ceremony?
Okay. The opening ceremony was very good. It had some parts somewhat questionable, but overall, very good.
Yeah. Closing ceremony, pretty good. At least parts, the handoff to the US. I mean, blame that on the US, but that part wasn't great. Tom Cruise sucks. And that stunt was very, very boring.
And then immediately cut away.
Yeah. But then more than just that, the venues, stunning. Right? Like, especially the beach volleyball venue, but like there were more. And sure, hosting the swimming events in the Seine were not great, at least the open water swimming events. But overall, I think you have to say very, very, very well done job by Paris, setting the bar very high, a bar that I don't think LA can personally clear. I don't think
I don't think LA gets there.
I mean, they just don't have the natural beauty to clear it, right? Paris is a beautiful city, and LA is. Sorry,
I
LA,
have
but
heard
you're
LA
anything but.
described as many things. Beautiful is not one of them.
No, it's never been one of them. It's never been their strong suit. Now they know how to put on the show, so their opening ceremony, right?
We got quite a few new events. We got baseball. We got softball. We got flag football for the first time.
Yeah, cricket, squash, lacrosse. No, it could be fun in 2028, but
no more Paris.
No, Paris did a great job. Let's talk about you know which one, Ray Gun. Let's talk about Ray Gun.
How was she allowed to compete?
That's a great question. That's the ultimate question. I feel like
flaw in the system was exploited for that to be allowed to happen.
She embarrassed her country. She embarrassed the Olympics. I'm sorry, she did.
Oh, and Morris, what great timing. We were talking to you earlier. You want to give your thoughts on breakdancing? I know we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, I think the bigger question is anyone in Australia qualified to breakdance? Because clearly, if this person was put forward to represent Australia in breakdancing in the Olympics, then that just puts into question the entire country. I mean, realistically, it looked like she was trying her best, but she just turned into a meme, and I kind of felt sorry for her.
Well, look, there has to be people that are better at breakdancing in Australia. There has to be, because there's people. I probably know people that can breakdance better than she did.
I know people like to break dance better than she, and they're from Australia, but no one
Yeah.
in Australia.
Like what was that? It was embarrassing. It had no place in the Olympics. Like what are we doing here?
I mean, the bigger question is, she won a national competition for Australia,
Yeah.
and that's why she's made it to the Olympics. I have to question everything, the qualifications for all the judges in that competition, and
Yep.
what went through their mind when they said, "This is a good person to put on here."
Yeah, this is the person to represent the nation of Australia in the Olympics. Who knows? Maybe they could have used her in swimming because, once again, Australia falling a gold medal and several total medals short of the United States in the pool. U.S. wins that rivalry again. That's another huge thing for the United States um, in these Olympics. I'd say, if you were to ask me, best moment of these Olympics was probably Quincy Hall's comeback in the men's 400-meter race. Just overall in these Olympics, of course, the 100-meter
men's
final.
basketball, Colin?
The 100-meter final was also big, but Charlie, I know that you've been
Not Steph
itching
Curry, Colin?
itching to touch on basketball. I'll get to that in a sec. I do quickly want to give more huge props to the U.S. women's national soccer team and Emma Hayes. What a job she's done turning that team around, winning their first big tournament, and an Olympic gold to go with it. But yeah, go ahead. Let's talk some hoops.
Steph Curry is inevitable. That's all I'm going to say. The first three-pointer really started to put the game away. The second one ended it. The third one was incredible and was basically impossible for anyone that isn't Steph Curry, and it completely put the game away. You can't defend that. You can't.
Let's talk about the fourth one for a sec.
The French left Kevin Durant and LeBron James, one top 2 and one arguably top 20 player in the history of basketball, wide open because they needed to double team Steph Curry, and Steph Curry throws up a 3-pointer and hits it anyway. It didn't matter.
Well, I mean, it's more than that. I mean, LeBron James, like you said, I'd say consensus top 2 player in basketball history. Some people have him number 1. Kevin Durant, more than just being a top 20 player all time.
That's a story for a different day.
Yeah. More than just being a top 20 player of all time, arguably. Greatest Olympic basketball player of all time, probably.
Definitely.
You leave him wide open, both of them, wide open, so that you can double team Curry, and it doesn't matter. He knocks down an impossible shot to end the game.
Yeah, and I think that is a very good word to describe it. Impossible. I think he is the only person that I think that can hit that shot.
Yeah,
the only other person that I think would have a chance of hitting that shot is Damian Lillard.
Yes, but Damian Lillard wouldn't take that shot.
No, because it's a horrible shot to take.
I mean, he could make it, but it's not a good look. For Curry, that's makeable. I mean,
somehow it is makeable.
Obviously, because he made it and put the entire nation of France to sleep. The U.S. is still dominant. We can talk about the gap closing, but we've still won 5 in a row, guys.
Yeah, we have, but I mean, you got to think is this the U.S.'s last one?
They're gonna win in L.A. I don't know about past then.
Yeah, they probably are gonna win in L.A. But I mean, it's the future of the sport is changing.
Yeah, I mean, on the women's side too. Like, I mean, I think that was less about the rest of the world catching up and more about 2 things. A, the U.S. women played a terrible, terrible basketball game. It was ugly. And also, Gabby Williams was insane for France.
Yes, she was.
And she very nearly sent the game to overtime, too.
Yes, she did.
4 inches, maybe?
She very nearly saved that game for the French, but comes up just short.
So that's basketball. Any other events in the Olympics? Any other, or maybe not even full events, but just moments you want to touch on? I touched on a couple from track and field, but any others for you?
No, not necessarily. I think seeing the surfing was pretty cool. I think the breakdancing overall was a very big disappointment, but overall, I think it was a good show.
Yeah, and let's dispel one rumor real quick. Breakdancing is not coming back in the 2028 Olympics. That has nothing to do with how it did here in the 2024 Olympics. It was never planned to come back. That was already decided several months ago.
Yeah, and I mean, It's bad. It was bad anyway.
Yeah, it's bad. I wouldn't want to bring it back if. But no, I agree with you. The surfing
10
was.
times out of 10, I would not bring it back.
Yeah. Looking forward to LA. Looking forward to the Winter Olympics too in Italy, coming up in like 18 months, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Let's jump away from the Olympics. Let's talk some baseball, Charlie. Apparently, it's been happening. As a Mariners fan, I wouldn't know. I've what they're playing, I'd hardly consider baseball.
No, I mean, usually our games look more like soccer games in terms of score.
Do you know that you're supposed to, hit the ball in baseball?
No,
That's
I don't think we know that.
a novel concept for the Mariners.
Yep. So, see, not looking good. Plenty of time to turn it around. 40 games left in the season. I do real quick. Obviously, I do want to talk about the Mariners a bit more, but I do real quick want to talk about the other Western Division. What is happening to the Dodgers?
They'll be fine.
Have you seen the Diamondbacks recently?
No. Oh, the Diamondbacks are great, and the Padres are close too. But
Do the Dodgers hold on and win the division?
The only way that Shohei Ohtani misses the playoffs this year is if he gets injured. And that's, I really think, all that matters at this point, that we finally get to see Ohtani play in the playoffs. We've seen that ultimately, especially in the National League, winning your division doesn't actually do a whole ton under this new wildcard system. Since the three wildcards were instituted, we've never seen a division winner play in the National League Championship Series.
Now, here's a question: do you trust the Dodgers in the wild card? There was all the jokes about they're gonna somehow lose to like San Diego, or they're gonna lose to or Cincinnati. I think it's gonna happen.
Here's my worry: they've lost the season series to the Padres. When was the last time that happened?
Let me guess, 2022 when they got knocked out in the playoffs.
No, the regular season series.
Oh, I don't know. It's been a while.
It's been, I would guess, over a decade. So that concerns me. No, look, there's reasons to be concerned about the Dodgers for sure, but for me at least, I don't care. I just want to watch Shohei Ohtani play in the playoffs, and barring an injury, that is going to happen.
I mean, looking at this, they would have to drop
quite
a lot. They would have to absolutely fall apart for them to miss the playoffs. But, it's possible.
I mean, we've seen Ohtani-led teams do that. They were a different franchise, the Angels, and that's more understandable because the talent around him was, shall we say, subpar.
And Mike Trout is back home on the injured list again.
Yeah, no, he's out for the year.
Yeah, well, he's probably out for more than that.
So it's a genuine question, and it's actually kind of sad that we're asking this because injuries have derailed such a great player's career. I mean, if you've watched the game for the last 5 years, you may not realize just how special of a talent Mike Trout is, but he really is that good. At what point with all these injuries does he just hang it up?
Yeah,
At what point does he decide that he doesn't want to deal with this anymore?
I mean, you gotta think that if he goes down again and loses another season,
especially given that he's on a team that he locked himself into till 2031, I believe.
That Angels team is going nowhere.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I almost feel bad for him. I feel bad for him about the injuries, not being on the Angels. He chose that for himself. But at what point does he just hang it up? It's gotta, like you said, I think we're not that far away.
No, and I think you gotta say the same thing. Switching sports a little bit, you gotta say the same thing about Joel Embiid, right?
No.
No, you think he can just keep going through these injuries again and again and again?
Yeah, I think yeah. I mean, if he gets injured enough that like MVPs are no longer on the conversation just because of the new rules regarding number of games you have to play to be considered.
When was the last time he had Colin, when was the last time he had a season that he played more than 70 games?
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
Does he have a season that he's played more than 70 games?
I don't know.
I don't think he does. Maybe he has one.
Yeah. Back to baseball. Go ahead and say your thoughts on the Mariners and I guess the Astros.
Now, people are saying the season's over. I don't think the season is over. Are we in a bad spot right now? Absolutely, we're in a bad spot right now. But look at the wild card race. We're 3.5 games out, and you got KC, who's very volatile. You got Boston, who's very volatile, and you got the Twins, who I really don't trust, and they just lost Byron Buxton. So I wouldn't say the season's over. Also, Houston has been incredibly streaky this year. They could fall off. They could potentially fall off. Season is not over, but it's not looking good.
I mean, here's the problem is that you've let the Astros gain 13 games on you in less than 2 months.
Correct, but that's
a historic level collapse.
There's two ways to think of this, and I think that they're both true. And that is that the Mariners played to the level that they should be playing at, given their talent level. Gained a lot of ground while Houston was floundering. Houston came up to the level that they should be playing at, and Seattle has fallen off. If they can regain that momentum that they had at the beginning of the season when they were playing the way they were supposed to play, scoring 5-6 runs a game, having that lights out pitching staff, I think that we can crawl back in. I mean, look at the division gap. It is not that far.
No, it's not that big, but I think here's the problem. Their offense is playing like it has all year in terms of production. Sure, they've added a couple bats, Turner and Rosarena and Robles, and they've performed well, but still, as a team that hasn't moved the needle at all, it seems, on the offensive side. The pitching is just as lights out, at least starting pitching, but the bullpen's been an unmitigated disaster.
I want to share something on that.
Yeah.
There comes a point where you bring in so many guys with so much offensive talent, and none of them pan out. You got to look at yourself, and you eventually got to say, it can't be these guys. There's no way that this has happened this many times. It's an organizational issue, and I think it starts. You got to start looking at Scott's service. You got to start looking at the offensive coaches. You got to start looking at some of the staff, and you got to make some changes. Does that entail getting rid of service? Potentially, I think we might have to. Does it potentially mean getting a more aggressive manager in and replacing Jerry DiPoto? Potentially it does. Will ownership do that? I doubt it. Do they need to do that to move forward? Yes, because we're only going to... The issue is Julio Rodriguez is going to start entering his prime. We're never going to have this... We're going to have this pitching staff for probably 2 years, and it is the best pitching staff that we are ever going to have. We basically have a 3-year window here where either we're going to get it done or we're not going to get it done. We can either finally break through and do something, or we can keep doing what we're doing. Now is the time to make a gamble, because if it pays off, it pays off, and if it doesn't, you just go back to doing what you've been doing and rebuild again.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
We've been doing that for the last 50 years. Our fan base is used to it. Go out, make some changes, and go on a run, because you're running out of time.
No, I agree with essentially all of that. I will say with the coaching, there's got to be legitimate concerns about service. The one thing I'll say, players love to play for him, and you cannot underestimate the value that holds as a manager. Also, you don't just bring in hitters and tell them to change a bunch of things with their swing if they're proven hitters. That's not a thing that happens, and that I think is evident by the fact that when you fire a guy like Brent Brown, the offense has been just the same since he left.
Okay, but the question is then, how are we bringing in these guys who everywhere else they've played, they've been great, and then as soon as they come here...
I think that there is a genuine thing about the Seattle's ballpark being a very tough hitter's park, but that can only account for a small portion of the failures that we're seeing.
Okay, so let's build a new ballpark then.
I mean, they like the advantage it gives their pitching, is what they would argue. But no, I agree. They will never have a window like this again, because of their pitching. And I mean, Service's contract is up at the end of the year, so is DiPoto's. They might be fired or they might, well, not fired, but they might not be asked to return. I don't know. And the thing with DePoto is it's a puzzle because on one hand, the success that he has had drafting and developing talent has been unparalleled. Incredible job there on the player development side. But at the same time, he has completely failed to supplement the roster. And is some of that due to John Stanton not wanting to pay the money, the owner not wanting to pay the money? Yes, it's got to be, but to what extent? Like, we've seen now, let's see, 6 signing periods in a row, or signing or trading periods in a row. 2022, 3 and 4 free agency, and then 2022, 23 and 24 trade deadline, where just enough has not happened. And especially looking at like the most recent one, like
we had prospects.
I don't think you traded any of your top 10 prospects.
No,
like sure, nobody did, but you've got to go out there and make moves. If not for this year, which by the way, I think was it worth investing in. The free agent market this year.
You got to get Jazz Chisholm. You got to make moves. Arozarena is great. Bring in 2 or 3 more guys like him. You needed to make a move. Knew the offense was struggling. You had to make a move, and you didn't do it.
Yeah, and then you look at, like, even if not for this year, for next year, the free agent market on the hitting side at least. Have you seen it for this offseason?
It's Juan Soto and no one else. Not getting Juan Soto.
Then you're not getting Juan Soto. Sorry, you're not. Not happening. There's no one else out there on the hitting side. You're going to have to really hope that you can work those trades in free agency when, by the way, those guys will probably be more expensive than some of them were this year. You're gonna have to work out those trades and end up trading those prospects anyway, or are you just so attached to those prospects that if and when they're good enough, your top pitching's gone because John Stanton won't let. You've got to do something. I'm sorry. You do.
Why guys like Harry Ford were not traded, I do not understand.
And I say that I love Harry Ford. I love him as a catcher for this team. But you know what? I also want to win now. I could also love Vladimir Guerrero Jr. if you brought him in. Harry Ford is what? At best, the catching version of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? I mean, a different type of player, sure. But still, at best, he's going to put up as good of a season in terms of wins above replacement as Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can, at best.
And Colin, I want to go back real quick to the coaching. Bring up another point. How many players in the Mariners organization have career years the year or 2 years after they leave the organization? I mean look at some of the guys that we let go in the last couple of years and how well they're doing.
I mean, Jared Kelenic, you can barely call it a career year because it's the only good year of his career, and it's not even that good. Teoscar Hernandez, you could make an argument that he's having a career year. Eugenio Suarez, having a really good year. He also, though, did perform really well for the Mariners in 2022. So, I mean, like, there are guys. Jesse Winker's having a great year. Not a career year, but having a pretty good year.
Ty France already has 3 home runs since leaving the Mariners.
It's Great American Ballpark, yes, but still.
I don't care. A home run is a home run.
So, no, you're right. But, I mean, the thing is, too, it's been happening. It's not just during this period of coaching of the service DePoto era of the Mariners. Like, look at Adrian Beltre, right? There's other examples from the past, actually pretty frequent. It's been a constant theme for the Mariners.
All right,
especially at T-Mobile Park. But
so if it's the ballpark, then why was it designed like that?
It's a good question. I think that I mean, I don't know what it is. People say maybe it's the slanted batter's eye. I don't know.
And also, Colin, your point about pitching. If your pitching allows 2 runs a game and your offense only scores 1 consistently, then I don't care how good of a pitcher's park it is. If your offense can't score, I don't care how good your pitching is because it doesn't matter.
It also makes it, a really unfun team to watch. I'm sorry. It's not like it's fun to watch dominant pitching, but it is hell on earth to watch you go up to the plate and strike out 10 times a night.
Honestly, 10 times a night would be a great night for our batters.
I mean, honestly. Yeah, let's move elsewhere in the league. Let's talk about talk about the White Sox, Charlie.
They're bad.
Very.
That's basically all I can say. They're awful. The Midwest.
Like, are
What is
they
it with
going to
the
lose 120 games?
What was it with the Midwest? It's the White Sox and it's the Pistons.
Yeah.
I will say.
No, I got to say that with that AL
At
Central,
least-
I've actually been impressed with how they've done this year, especially the Royals and Bobby Witt Jr. Like,
Well, I remember I was talking at the beginning of the year, and I was saying that with the amount of money they're paying him, it better work out. I remember I did like a little preseason power rankings thing for I ranked the Royals at 28.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year. Then they have surprised me. They are the surprise of the year this year.
I thought they'd be slightly better, but not, what they've been so far.
Bobby Witt's proven it. The only question is, can he keep proving it?
Yep. NL Central, possibly the most uninteresting division this year.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The AL West has been pretty boring.
But the Rangers are a story.
Yes.
Only because
World Series champs just imploding.
Predictably. If you look at it, they from mid-May to the end of last year.
They were
From
below
mid-May of
500.
last year to the end of last year, were a below 500 team. They got hot in October because they had done enough in April and early May to get to October. So they got hot in October.
Colin, basically what they did was they got a huge lead that they were never going to give up in the division, coasted the entire rest of the season in preparation for October, and then dominating in the playoffs.
Well, but it's not even that. Like, from mid-May, they have played so far this season like they did from mid-May to the end of September last year. It's completely predictable why they've been only okay this year. They just happened to once again get really, really hot in October, just like they got really, really hot in early April, or in April and early May of last year.
And Colin, taking a double-digit game lead was exactly what we did, and we threw it away.
Yep.
We played slightly worse than Texas did last year.
Yep.
If we just gone 500 for the rest of the year, I think we would win the division.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, have you seen who the Mariners get to face on the mound on Friday?
Is it Paul Skeens?
It's Paul Skeens.
Well, okay, Colin, you know what's going to happen, right? We're losing 1-0 again.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll just absolutely blow him up, and if so, by the time this episode's out, we'll look like fools. But
yeah, hey, Colin, here's a question: is it possible to score negative? Because I think we might do it.
Yeah, we'll find a way.
How is our run differential not negative? How is it positive 24?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about the East divisions, and we got to move on from baseball. The Mets are okay.
Apparently, Philadelphia is doing what they're doing,
but they've faltered a lot recently.
They have been, and you know who else has been faltering? The Dodgers.
Well, sure, but also the Braves. Like, what's going on in Atlanta?
I don't know. I gotta say though, I agree. The Central is very boring. The Brewers are very good, and the rest of the division is very mediocre. Colin, I've noticed something.
What?
I think the Central division switched places.
Yep.
The AL Central now has a couple teams in the playoffs, like the NL Central usually does. And the NL Central has one team that's really good, and everyone else is going to finish with less than 80 wins.
Yep. And then the AL East finally. I don't know what happened to the Blue Jays and the Rays this year, but the Red Sox have been a nice surprise, except for Jarren Duran using a homophobic slur. But
he got a ton of jersey sales out of it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, of course he did. Just shows you just how amazing some people are.
Yeah, I mean, it's Boston fans. We expected this, no?
Yeah, I think it's also people outside of Boston now showing solidarity with him by buying a jersey, which is dumb. But
indeed, it is.
And then the Yankees are. The Yankees. I'm just gonna say it. They're overrated again.
No, come on. The Yankees are going to do what they do every single year. They're going to make the playoffs, win a series, and then lose in the ALCS.
You know what? You know what my favorite part of being born in the mid 2000s was?
We've never had to witness the Yankees winning a World Series.
No, all that we know of the Yankees is the Yankees who fail in the postseason. That's all that the two of us know of them.
They're basically just the Cowboys, but slightly better.
Exactly. It's
Also,
really,
Colin,
really fun to experience that. And I know it's not going to last forever, but that's really enjoyable.
Here's something for you. 1993 was the last time the Yankees had a record that was worse than 500.
Yeah.
In that time, they won the World Series in 99, in 2000, in 2009. Did they get one in between then?
Yeah, didn't they win like 96 and didn't they win
Yes,
like
they won
3 in a
96
row?
and 97, sorry.
Yeah.
And then, since then, they have won, since 2009. That's 15 straight seasons, over 500, and they have done absolutely nothing.
Yep.
Have they made it back to the World Series since then? I don't think they have.
No, they haven't. They have not.
They really are just the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep, they are.
I have a solution, Colin.
What?
We move the Yankees to Dallas.
Yeah. Also, I will say, they want to re-sign Juan Soto really badly. I get it. I would too. But if that's all that your ownership's going to do this offseason, maybe consider going a different route, because you're seeing how it's working out with just Soto and Judge providing the offense. It's not going great.
I do have another question for you, by the way.
Yeah.
Where did all of their prospects go?
To the Padres.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, all their pitching prospects with the Padres. What happened to the, didn't they have a couple of decent infielders?
Well, they had Volpe, and he's been fine to good.
Who was that dude that they called up late last year? He hit a couple of home runs and was pretty good for that season, and then he's just gone.
That was Oswaldo Cabrera or something.
Some other guy. I don't remember who he was, but I haven't heard of him since then. So I can only imagine that he got lost in Manhattan somewhere and they can't find him.
Yeah. All right, moving on from baseball. Charlie, I'll let you talk I don't know if it's your favorite sport, but the sport that you like and I don't.
Yeah, Formula One. We actually have a good season going, apparently. Things have happened since I've been gone. The Red Bull implosion continues. They've lost Jonathan.
That's putting it a bit strongly.
Well, no. They've lost Jonathan Wheatley, who is a very senior position in the team, which is another big blow to them. McLaren since we last recorded, Max Verstappen has not won. We've had 2 races. Oscar Piastri getting his first race win in Hungary. Controversially, though, Lando Norris basically forced to give up the win to Oscar Piastri. Smart move for the team, for the constructors, but if Lando Norris loses out in the championship by less than 7 points, Hungary will come back to bite him. And then in Belgium, it was a Mercedes 1-2. However, George Russell, after the race, disqualified for I believe his car being underweight by 1.4 kilograms. How this happened, I have no idea. How they didn't notice that, I don't know. But big blow for Mercedes, and big blow for George Russell, in fact. But going back to Red Bull for a minute, Verstappen still leads the championship by 78 points, I believe. Red Bull leads the constructors by 42. Maximum points that can be scored in a weekend is 48. So McLaren is within 1 race weekend of taking away the constructors' championship lead. And the reason for that is Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez has the word I would use is atrocious. Up until Belgium, the last time that he had qualified since Miami, which was race 5, he's qualified better than 8th twice. One of them was 8th in Miami, and then 2nd place in Belgium because Verstappen had an engine penalty. So Perez finally chance to save his job. He's in P2 at the start. All he has to do is pass Leclerc. Can't do it.
This is which race?
In 8th. And the only reason he's not 8th in the championship is because George Russell got disqualified. So everyone's thinking, okay, Perez is gone. They're going to call Lawson up, or they're going to call Ricciardo up, or they're going to call Tsunoda up. And later that day after the Grand Prix, there's footage of Verstappen and Ricciardo in a helicopter celebrating. Clearly, Ricciardo's been promoted. That's the gist of the understanding. And then Christian Horner comes out and says, no, in fact, Perez is staying for the rest of the season. And in fact, he's been given a 2-year extension. Why they've done this, I don't know. I imagine it's likely a money and promotion and thing. I imagine that he sells a lot of Red Bull in Mexico. But this is a disaster. in more ways than one. Because now Ricardo is stuck at Red Bull at RB, Racing Bulls. So is Yuki Tsunoda, and that means that Liam Lawson, your young prospect that you've been waiting to call up, is now going to leave at the end of next season because he doesn't have a seat, because you decided to put in his contract that if he doesn't have a seat by 2025, he can leave and go somewhere else. The other issue with this is now they don't have Red Bull going into next season. Now will not have their top car designer that they've had for a very long time. They will not have one of their chief technical guys who's been there the entire time in week. They're going to have a team principal who's basically running the team like a tyrant and is in a civil war with the father of their best driver, and their second driver is actively trying to burn the team down.
So, Charlie, here's a question. Just how bad is Alpine right now?
Oh, man. This season for Alpine has been an absolute disaster. They started with a car that was so overweight that it was thought that they had made some serious technical disaster with the car. Since then, it has gotten slightly better. They scored points. In Monaco, they had a great opportunity for a double point. Decided to see what would happen if he tried to combine his car with his teammate's car, ended up launching himself in the air, knocking himself out of the race, and nearly knocking his teammate out of the points. Gasly did end up scoring. And that, in fact, actually was such a disaster that they ended up almost suspending Ocon for a race. They didn't, and then ended up firing him a couple races later. He's now going to Haas in the next season. And this is so bad for Alpine now that they've had to basically sell off their engine department, and they're going to become a customer of Mercedes in 2026. And it's become so bad that they're looking like they're going to sell the team in 2026 because they're clearly not in the right space right now. This is their third team principal in 3 years. It went from someone whom I don't remember to Otmar Safnauer, who got fired mid-race in Belgium, to Bruno Faman, who got fired, and now to Oliver Oakes, who is a guy that I've never heard of, who actually pulled him somewhere out of Alpine. And now the issue for them is they have Pierre Gasly, and they don't have a second driver. They have a couple options. They have Jack Doohan, they have Mick Schumacher, they have a couple other guys in F2. They have Victor Martins. And then apparently there's some rumors. I believe that they are false. But there are some rumors that they could bring in Nikita Mazepin again, which, if you know anything about him, is potentially the worst decision that they could possibly make. I wouldn't put it past them, though. This team is an absolute disaster, and them potentially selling is a very smart move because it is only downhill from here. If you look at the teams that they're fighting with, Racing Bulls has a good future. If Red Bull continues on their trajectory of being good, which we'll see, I doubt it, but Racing Bulls is fine. Tsunoda and Ricardo are two very reliable drivers. Haas, now finally rid of Gunther Steiner, is finally starting to perform the way that they need to. Esteban Ocon, I think, is a great fit there. Oliver Bierman, a great young driver who to perform to the level that car can and beyond. He's a guy that can elevate what he's in. Scoring points in a Ferrari on debut on a track like Jeddah is impressive. 6 points on debut is fantastic. And the other teams that are around them, Williams is not great. They're getting better. They're getting Carlos Sainz, and their trajectory shows them getting better. And the worst team on the grid, Kick Sauber, is becoming Audi, and they're going to get better. So for Alpine, everyone near them is getting better, except for them. They need to get out of the sport as soon as they can and give it to another team, potentially Andretti, who can actually make this team competitive. And I think selling the team to Andretti is not only the right thing from a business standpoint, but also from F1 themselves should encourage this move, because I think bringing Andretti into the sport in a way that doesn't cause him to sue them, which he might do, given the whole chaos around that, which I'm not going to get into now, because I'd be talking 20 minutes. But
you already have been.
They need to sell the team, and I think selling to Andretti would be a great decision for them.
All right. Going to move on from that. Let's talk very quickly NBA schedule for this season's out. Let's just go over some of the highlights real quick. Opening night. Knicks, Celtics, and Timberwolves, Lakers. MLK Day. It's Timberwolves, Grizzlies, and Celtics, Warriors are the featured games. The Christmas schedule: Spurs, Knicks, Timberwolves, Mavericks, 76ers, Celtics, Lakers, Warriors, Nuggets, Suns, and then that final big highlight, big triple header, ABC to Rivals Week. in mid-January. Get Timberwolves rematch of the Western Conference semis, Celtics Mavericks rematch of the NBA Finals, and then Lakers Warriors. Charlie, what sticks out to you about this year's schedule?
I mean, you got some great matchups, but I will say, Lakers, who are a team that are probably potentially going to finish under 500, are on primetime a lot. And I know it's the Lakers, I know it's LeBron, but please give them to a team that's actually going to be competitive.
Yep.
But obviously, I understand why they're doing it, and it makes sense. But I don't like it.
It's fair. All right. Real quick. Of course, in a couple of weeks, we'll do our full NFL preview with our game back. We still haven't done the punishment from last year. I promise it will happen at some point, Charlie. Don't worry.
Oh, it better.
I don't know when. We'll figure it out. But we'll do that challenge again. But we're not gonna do that tonight. Let's talk just for a couple minutes here about the upcoming college football season. Obviously expanded playoff, 12-team playoff. Charlie, a couple things. Let's just start like right at the beginning of the season. A couple things that catch my mind. Starting with what could be a highlight game of week 1 somehow. Colorado and North Dakota State.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. Real quick, before we get into that, I do want to say, I believe that this is the weakest the two national championship teams have looked in a very long time.
Yes, no, it is definitely.
Both of these teams got destroyed by players leaving.
Yep.
Particularly Washington, but Michigan is also going to be not as great as they were this year.
Yep.
Last year.
Yep. No, go ahead. With that game, Colorado, North Dakota State.
I think I would not put it past Colorado to lose the game.
I think it's more than that. I think that they are going to lose this game.
What do you have? Out of curiosity, though, what do you have Colorado record-wise?
4 wins, 5 wins?
I think they're going to go 4-8 again.
I mean, you could argue that their competition is. I mean, actually, I don't know if it's better because the Pac-12 was kind of stacked with quarterbacks last year, and Colorado's defense was awful last year. But I mean, their schedules. I mean, there's tough teams on there: Utah, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Arizona, Baylor, Texas Tech.
And Colin, just a reminder, this is the team that last year blew a 29-point lead to Stanford, who didn't they lose to an FCS school the previous week?
Pretty sure, yeah.
So, why are we talking about level of competition with a team that is that in beating teams that they should beat?
Oh no, it's not like they're going to end up near the top or anything. I'm just wondering how bad they're going to be.
We're talking about Mariners' level of incompetence.
No, they want the story to be on them. We're going to talk about just how bad this team is all year.
Yeah, see, I think the thing is, this team, in a lot of ways, is gonna be what it was last year, coming in very hyped up. I think that they will win their first couple games of the year. I do think they beat North Dakota State. Again, I wouldn't put it past them if they lose, but I think they do win. And that is, I think what's going to happen is that they're going to do exactly what they did last year: win a couple of games, be a very hyped team, and then completely fall apart.
Let's remember, the reason that they got so much hype at the beginning of the year is obviously there was a hype. What's Dion going to do, right? What's he going to be able to do with this team? And then they beat the team that was just coming off being the runner-up to the national championship.
Okay,
right?
runner-up is,
yeah,
runner-up, but they got absolutely obliterated.
No, it was a close game. Oh, sorry. Oh, in the national championship, yes.
Correct.
Yeah, it was a close game between Colorado and TCU, but then let's remember, TCU was bad for the rest of the year. I don't think they made a bowl game. Colorado didn't beat any team that made a bowl game last year.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Who did they beat? TCU?
Nebraska, Colorado State, and then I want to say Arizona State.
Yikes.
Yeah. No, not great. I will say, one quick final note on college football here. There's a fun week that people should maybe block off to watch a little bit of football. This is the week we're talking about here. Ohio State, Oregon, Ole Miss LSU, Penn State USC, and Texas Oklahoma, all in the same week. There's other games that week too that could be fun.
Couldn't get much better than that.
Like that's not it. Like, Colorado goes to play Kansas State that week. Clemson, Wake Forest, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi State, Iowa, Washington. Well, that's not that great. Syracuse, NC State. Like there are other good games, but four of the best games of the year all in the same week. You're not beating that.
No.
Although, can I say real quick? Can we stop pretending that Lincoln Riley's a great head coach for USC? I'd like that guy to learn the meaning of the word defense. Every time I see Lincoln Riley coach, I think this guy would be such a good offensive coordinator.
No, he would be. He would be.
Also, then one final thought. Is Ryan Day coaching for his job against Michigan on November 30th?
Probably.
I have to imagine so. Michigan is a lot weaker than they were last year. Different head coach.
Ohio State cannot lose again.
If they lose to Michigan, then Ryan Day has to be gone. I personally think he should be gone already. I thought that he did not do a good job coaching this team this year. I think that in a lot of ways you can chalk their loss to Michigan up to him. But it's gotta be it's do or die for him this year.
Oh, and for a good chunk of that Ohio State team too. I mean, that playoff loss in 2022 was just devastating off that field goal miss.
Yep, absolutely.
Well,
all right, any last comments before we get out of here?
He missed it by about a half mile.
Yeah, right as the clock struck midnight.
Yep.
That ball was kicked in 2022 and landed in 2023.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the way he kicked it to the left, I'm surprised it didn't land in, 2019.
Sure. All right, any final comments before we roll out of here?
No, not from me.
All right, this has been a long episode, but it's going to do it. Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe to C&C Talks podcast. Episodes coming out every single week, available every podcast, especially as we approach the election here. Our website, cctalks.com, has everything you need to know about the show. You can call us with your questions, 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630. Follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast. Follow Charlie at CC Talks Charlie. Join our Discord server at cctalks.com/Discord. All of this information and more is in the description of this episode. But for now, for our producer Morris, production designer Zach, I'm Colin.
I'm Charlie, and we'll see you next week.